The serenade of police sirens and the zip of a body bag. The soundtrack to our morbid curiosity. Whether it's true crime or death as entertainment, we come back again and again for more of the macabre, more mystery, and more murder. The truth is, we don't scare too easily because it will never happen to us. Right? Never in our wildest dreams.
Life is cruel. It's very cruel. So, we can walk in here one day and have 5 bodies here, but then by the end of the day, we can have 20 in here.
Whoever did it knows this place was abandoned.
We have on our staff ex-homicide detectives, ex-criminalists, and they always talk to us about these things.
She has no rounds to the back part of her body. Everything she took is firm.
We have one guy on our show who said, if people really knew what was outside after 10 o'clock on the streets, they would go home, close their doors, and never come out.
There's no decomp, there's nothing.
You would have definitely would have had lividity setting in, within an hour or two, you would have been able to see.
The jurors, they want to see it. They want to see where the DNA is. They want to see the forensics.
A lot of times we're up against the CSI effect. People that watch those shows think that we can just pull a fingerprint out of the air, and it's just not like that. Not in reality, it's not.
There's 2 questions I tend to get. The first is, how can I do what I do, which is dealing with dead bodies all the time? And how can I live with other people knowing what they do? And I say it's a challenge.
I think that there's a sense of a kind of need to understand that we all die. But I think more than the need, there's a desire to see some story or some kind of depiction of death as long as it's not our own.
It's kind of difficult to understand or even deal with. So what a lot of us are, we're God-fearing people.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, State of Maryland. My name's Dave Fowler. I'm the chief here, which, as you all well know, translates into, if anything goes wrong in this building, it's my fault. What we're trying to do with this program, and it follows on from what francesglessnerlee put together in the beginning, was to give police officers an orientation to the way medical examiners view death investigation.
The seminar is a full week-long program, and it's an opportunity for forensic pathologists to be able to take a group of almost 50 police officers and take them through a death investigation program very much from the medical side, so that they get an opportunity to learn the way forensic pathologists and medical death investigators think. And when they're going through the investigation, interviewing witnesses, they can really evaluate the information they've got with a lot more clarity. My understanding is that when francesglessnerlee identified this gap in the training and the resources for law enforcement, she threw herself wholeheartedly into that process and endowed the Harvard Medical School with enough money for them to have a chair of medico-legal medicine. And at some point along the way, she decided that she was going to take this on the road, so to speak, and start holding her own seminars specifically for law enforcement. And so the Harvard Associates in Police Science seminar series was started.
I've read where that's supposed to be like an old investigator saying somewhere. That's how I think they got to be called nutshells. And or the fact that they are small, they are miniature, they're power-packed, and the truth lies there, and it could be that even, that truth in a nutshell. Basically, I'm the nutshell man. I am the one with the secrets. I know the solutions to all the nutshells. Also, on the seminars, I'm the one who assigns the nutshells to the various groups. All right, here we are at the end of the day. We're here, what I would think is probably the more interesting or the more enjoyable block. That's going to be the case assignments, where we assign the nutshells to various groups, and that you have the opportunity to work them during the week and then come back on Thursday and to give a report, by your group. They're basically a composite of actual crimes that occurred that francesglessnerlee was able to put into a model format. They are built on a 1-inch to 1-foot scale. So as you go in there, you got to picture yourself, if you're a 6-foot investigator, you're now 6 inches and try to immerse yourself into those models. It's not a whodunit. So the purpose is not to solve them as much as it's more to look at indirect evidence that would be medical in nature.
On the surface, Robert and Kate Judson had it all. A cozy home, a new baby, and Bob's steady paycheck. On October 31st, just before going to bed, Kate Judson set the table for her family's morning breakfast. She had every intention of waking up the next morning. But she never did. Or if she did wake up, it was for just one brief, terrifying moment. Something in this house doesn't add up.
This window's open slightly right here in the front. You see it? Mm-hmm. What's it say about that? Well, there's a sewing machine right in front of the window. It's, not disturbed. It's pretty heavy. Chairs aren't out of place like they use them to step up on. There's no signs of forced entry in either door. Sewing machine doesn't look disturbed at all, right? No. The chair's pulled out from the sewing machine like somebody just got done sewing and got up and walked away.
There's a pool of blood in the baby's room.
Chair's knocked down. There's a sign of a struggle.
With maybe drag marks, blood coming from the baby's room into the kitchen.
When you first look at this model, you have to look at the premise and say, could this be a triple homicide? Could this be a suicide, double homicide? The one thing you're sure, it's not a natural. It didn't happen naturally. So now you're dealing with a certain kind of death. And you have to go through, again, looking at the various clues, looking at what's presented, and what information you may need through an autopsy that may clear up exactly what may have happened.
Most people are absolutely fascinated by them, bearing in mind that they were designed for police officers in training, who are a fairly hardened group of people who've often seen an awful lot before they get to the stage of being chosen to become a detective. They're a difficult group to please sometimes, and we assign them to these models, and they take this challenge very, very seriously.
On the 19th, she comes here for whatever reason to meet somebody, the horseplay to do whatever. They do whatever they're doing. It goes bad. She's beaten.
So
maybe there is
captive.
Well, and that's possible. Although this looks like she may have just came in to visit.
So it's like real life almost, and there's a lot of little minute details which are extremely important in any investigation, especially a homicide investigation.
I gave it some thought, and I sort of think that the nutshells was the CSI of 1937, and quite frankly, I wish we had somebody to could do these, and we had the time and effort and energy to put it into each and every scene because they're so valuable.
Francesglessnerlee was born in 1878. She lived in this house until she got married at age 19, and she died in 1962.
Frances was the heir to the international harvester fortune. She was one of 2 children. She had a brother who was allowed to go on to school at Harvard. She was not allowed to go to school because she was protected, and she had private tutors, and her father did not want her to go to college.
But her brother had the opportunity to go to Harvard, would bring a friend home who was Dr., I guess, McGrath, and would sit around and talk about what was going on and what wasn't going on in terms of death investigation and people literally getting away with murder. So that's why she decided, and she had the means and, I guess, the fortitude to make a difference.
Because of her being raised in a privileged, wealthy environment, she had learned the art of creating miniatures. And she took that amazing ability and put it into crime investigation. She would go out to the morgues and ride-alongs with police officers, so she understood decomposition and all the colors needed to make a doll look dead. So then she would decide how she would kill each one. She'd stab or shoot or hang or, you know, whatever it was. Now, she had the carpenter build everything. They had working doors, working locks, little tiny keys. She would knit socks on straight pins, which is a feat. In one, which was Burnt Cabin, she actually built this whole beautiful cabin and then blowtorched it to get it incinerated. I think it's very sad that her history has been lost. And I think in part it is because she was female and she wasn't taken as seriously. She's creating doll houses. I think she was easily dismissed for that reason. And yet she was the first female member of the American Academy of Forensic Sciences, which is the leading forensic science organization in the world. She was the first woman to be invited into the International Chiefs of Police Association. She was made an honorary captain in the New Hampshire State Police. I mean, she took her money and put it into helping police officers become better and bringing attention to the medical examiner system and how important it was for death investigators to be trained medically.
Around the boarding house, Maggie Wilson had a reputation as a free-spirited entrepreneur, despite having severe epilepsy. On the night she died, her neighbor Lizzie heard Maggie entertaining gentlemen callers. The sound of running water in their shared bathroom kept Lizzie awake. When she finally got up to shut it off, Lizzie found Maggie. No longer the life of the party.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the dinner part of the program. The most important part about this whole process is remembering the people that made the Harvard Associates in Police Science possible. It started with Francesglessnerlee.
She was prepared to provide police with something that nobody else had considered they needed. Nobody else was prepared to, or had the resources to give them at that particular time. Really endeared her completely to the law enforcement agencies.
And I'd like to propose a toast to all of those who came before us in the Harvard Associates in Police Science. Francesglessnerlee and everybody else.
Being a woman back in the 30s where very few women actually got into the detective branches, and the glass ceiling was very, very much lower and thicker than it is now. That just, I think, really indicates the magnitude of respect that she received from the law enforcement agencies.
She should be known as the patron saint of forensic medicine, of forensic science as we know it today, because again, there was nothing going on. There might have been stuff going on in Europe, but there truly was nothing going on in the States as we know what a medical examiner is now.
I think the nutshell studies are very symbolic to the story of Fanny Glessner's life. Most of her time was spent modeling herself into sort of the feminine role of mother, daughter, granddaughter. And I almost wonder if going into forensics and science and death was sort of a reaction, a revolt against the life that she was forced to lead in her younger years. Here at the museum, we see her as a child who had a wonderful life. In her later years, she wrote a letter describing her life as lonely and quite terrifying. Did she feel like she never met up to the expectations of others? Was she just unhappy because she wanted to live more in the realm of men? We may never know the answers to that.
Here's a woman who today, in my mind, unquestionably would have been a detective, who wasn't allowed to go to college, who wasn't allowed to get a degree, who wasn't, that it wasn't seemly work for a woman to be involved with crime and bodies and everything. And so, maybe in that kind of, classic Chicago Midwestern, good, kind of buck up kind of an attitude, she kind of sucked all that frustration down into a nasty little ball, and she made it into these horrifying little miniatures.
While her bundt cake was cooling, Robin Barnes started to kill herself. She made the kitchen airtight by stuffing newspaper in the door cracks, turned on the gas stove, and waited. She'd been depressed for a long time, according to her husband Fred. Curious how Robin committed suicide in the middle of making dinner.
What Frances Glessner-Lee created in the 1930s were these amazing dioramas of crime scenes, but in a way, she didn't create these scenarios so that detectives could look at them to solve them, but more to try and sharpen their skills at trying to determine what happened.
You had to really look at these subtle clues and not just take the scenario for what it immediately looked like. And a lot of police officers told her that they had become better investigators as a result of being forced to really think their way through these studies.
It's amazing the detail that was used with blood spatter, with newspapers, with knives, the way the bodies would lay. It's amazing that that was able to be accomplished some 70 years ago and be relevant today.
There's a darkness to it. You're looking into the soul of a crime scene. You can see the blood. You can see the footprints through the blood. You can see shell casings on the floor.
Yeah, sure, it's low tech because she was dealing with the tools of the 1930s and 40s and the techniques of those times. But what it really forces you to understand is the relationship between interpretation and behavior. And each one of those nutshell studies tells a little story of human interaction. And that's really, I think, the basis of all crime is human interaction.
Charlie Logan worked long hours at the box factory. When he came home, he was often drunk and looking for a fight. On the worst nights, his wife Caroline persuaded Charlie to sleep it off, alone. Caroline told investigators that shortly after Charlie went to bed, she heard movement and then a shot. She ran upstairs and found the gun, the string, and her dead husband.
First, a Y-shaped incision. Diagonal right, diagonal left, then down. Pull away the muscles to reveal the rib cage and abdominal cavity.
Visible Proofs Forensic Views of the Body is an exhibition at the National Library of Medicine. The exhibition provides a lot of applied science and medicine in solving criminal cases. The nutshell studies have been borrowed from the Maryland Chief Medical Examiner's Office. They have the 18 nutshell studies, and we borrowed 4 of them. The public doesn't have access to the nutshells on a regular basis. However, National Library of Medicine is a public building. Therefore, general public can come in, and while they visit the Visible Proofs, they get to see these very unique crime scenes in miniature size.
Most people are drawn to the nutshells. As soon as I point them in the direction of them, they're immediately off trying to figure out how the person died in each scene.
Doll houses in their form always represent that kind of innocence that comes with some kind of domestic scene of the home. But what is always lurking in any kind of question of innocence is, of course, some dark specter.
Traditionally, dollhouses are idealized, and when you represent the complete antithesis of it in the same form, it's extremely disturbing. I mean, it's like, instead of like, Malibu Barbie and Ken, you've got, dead Malibu Barbie and, and Ken with a shotgun. I mean, it's like, it's really, it's kind of messed up and weird.
What Frances Glessner Lee successfully did was, in fact, expose what is the supposed domestic tranquility for what it really is, which is fraught with scenes of violence and death and suicide.
We have a culture that thrives on romantic notions and fairy tales and the hope that things will one day be perfect. And as a result, people get complacent and feel as if they'll be safe. And inside the dream, supposedly, is where it's safe. So people marry somebody they think is going to be the ultimate guardian or the person who will make everything perfect and safe and wonderful. But when somebody gets murdered, the spouse is always the first person.
They always look for the domestic partner first in terms of, well, where were you? And where were you that night and what were you doing? And, because again, I think what we saw in a lot of these models, it happened at home. It happened to women. It happened in places where they should be secure and safe, and they're not.
All of the women are living lives of quiet desperation in some way. I think that perhaps it was Frances Glessner Lee's way of trying to change the perspective, especially realizing that this is a field dominated by men, and that it probably would be for decades to come. I think that she purposefully put a focus on women and perhaps challenged the way that the people that would view these nutshells think about women. Yeah, I really hope that she was as subversive as I am thinking that she was.
Dorothy Dennison never gave her mother a moment's worry. So when the high school student didn't return home from the market, her mother knew something was wrong. The last known person to see Dorothy alive was the neighborhood butcher, who sold her a pound of hamburger. 4 days of hot, humid weather passed before the police found Dorothy's corpse in the parlor of a vacant parsonage. Determining her time since death would explain much of what Dorothy cannot.
The question is not whether or not murder is entertainment. It is entertainment, which is part of the thing that I think drives our attention with it.
There is a fascination with figuring out, you know, the basis or the reasoning or the method of how one human being could take the life of another.
The detail is
Terrifying. I think Malibu Barbie did it.
Well, then there's a lot more to Barbie than just a pretty face, because this is a perfect half-inch scale model of the room. 3 different views of the same dead doll.
In season 7, we wanted to try something different. We wanted to have a storyline that arced across the entire season. We finally hit upon a way to do that, and that was with what we eventually ended up calling the miniature serial killer, which was a killer that leaves a miniature of a crime scene at an actual crime scene. The inspiration for this came from the nutshell studies. The fans really loved this story. It just had a very special feel to it. It was something that people had never seen before. CSI is obviously a show that revolves very tightly around science. All of the techniques you see on the show are real. The instrumentation in our lab, most of it is actually working. We have one of the best equipped crime labs in the country, sadly, on our fictional sets.
With all the science, CSI looks really good on TV. I don't know of any one state crime lab or county crime lab will have all those bells and whistles. The science is good. It's not junk science, but I don't think any of us possess those toys in order to carry out the job that they do, especially in a time. I mean, I've seen tox results come in during a commercial break. You know, they were still out in the field and they're getting results. Does not happen in life.
We're telling a dramatic story in 45 minutes of program time, and, you know, the thing that we compress into that amount of time could be 6 months to a year of analysis and data collection and evidence collection. You know, that's just television.
It's not like CSI. I wish it was. I wish they gave us Hummers and let us wear cool clothes all the time, but it's very messy.
where people are like, well, didn't you get that DNA? Isn't it done yet? They don't understand that it could take 3, 6, 9 months up the road to get some of that evidence back.
Of course, we're not all as good looking as who they have on TV. Our social lives aren't quite as exciting as theirs, and the cases don't get done in quite the perfect manner that they get done.
Frank Harris was unconscious and smelled of liquor when he was spotted by a police officer. The wagon picked Frank up and took him to jail, where he was left alone for the night. By morning, Frank was dead. Was it an accident or murder?
Now, this is the famous murder board. Now, these are all the murders that each squad has gotten throughout the year. And the way this breaks up is the red, any name that you see written in red here, those are open cases. The black names are cases that have been solved, and we have an arrest in those cases. The blue ones are officer involved, meaning these were homicides by the police, generally because the officers had to take deadly force action, and as a result, the subject died. Anywhere you see a badge is a police officer that was killed. So we've only had one this year, thank God. Every day, I come and stand in front of this board. My partners stand in front of this board, and we look at it, and you run everything through your head, every possibility through your head. The men and women in this unit have lost time with their families. They've missed birthdays, they've missed holidays, they've missed a lot of important events in their families' lives because this is so important. Basically what we know now so far is that he's a white male, 54 years old, and he's an IV drug user. That's a possibility of the cause of his death. Hanging at Central Book.
Juries expect you to do what CSI does. They expect you to find a spot of blood on a car that was left at the airport 3 weeks ago because you found a lead that said the left rear tire of this car with its tread had to have come from a rental car. In reality, those leads drive away and sometimes you never discover them.
It has been, often portrayed as a negative thing that we, that people see something on the show and suddenly they're expecting prosecutors to assemble, to analyze every hair and fiber and print every surface and sample everything for DNA and have it all ready, and that we are generating a demand for an unreasonable amount of evidence and analysis. I've heard that. I've heard, the flip side, which is that, at least people understand these things. Like, we're not back in the O.J. Simpson trial days where, like, you had to, spend days and days and days educating people on what DNA was and why it was valuable.
The negative spin is what you often hear from attorneys, because what they think has happened is that the television shows like CSI have miseducated lay people who then get on juries and make poor decisions and acquit people more often because of reasonable doubt. For example, I do know of a case where the jury acquitted because the detectives didn't fingerprint the grass. And that's just stupid.
People associate science with truth, so they're expecting you to be able to do a lot more than you might be able to do because you're using science.
It is very important, and it can answer a lot of questions, but it's not everything for us.
But the other part of that, the positive spin, is that while they're not really getting the real story on these shows, in fact, they're sitting and listening to the experts in ways they never used to do. They would go to sleep when the scientists took the stand, like, because I don't understand that language. Now they do. So now they listen.
In my opinion, people have a tendency to believe what they see on television, but in reality, to get any result, for DNA, anything, it can take weeks and sometimes even months, depending from state to state or laboratory to laboratory.
There are many cases where, if you get to the top of the heap, you can get a good DNA result in 18 hours. It's more of a question of the actual laboratory backlog than anything else. That's why it takes 6 months.
Attorneys are asking for more testing than they even need because the juries demand it. And juries think DNA is in every crime scene. It's in about 10 to 15%. Usable DNA is in about 10 to 15% of crime scenes. If you didn't process for DNA or you didn't bring it into the trial, they may translate that into reasonable doubt.
This whole body of science is only as good as the lowliest person who's doing it, either collecting the evidence from the field, the lab bench worker who's processing it, and that if that kind of stuff is misused or not done appropriately, they can all wind up being perfect crimes.
Marion and Arthur were married, only not to each other. Hideaway was their secret rendezvous until the day Arthur was killed by a single shot. Marion told police that Arthur announced their affair was over. There was no heartbreak, no argument. Arthur simply bent down to pick up his cigarettes, and his gun accidentally went off. It took the police several days of searching the cabin before they found the bullet.
So a show like CSI will be understood not in terms of, say, murder or dead bodies, as much as justice is being done. And that's what makes, I think, a show like that so palatable, which is to say, if CSI suddenly changed all of its scripts where none of the murders were solved, in fact, every case was left open-ended, and they would say, well, we can't figure this one out. If that's what the show did, I think people would just be irate.
I see death investigation kinds of movies, television shows, novels, true crime, as giving us a frame for getting close to something that scares us, that seems amorphous, that we don't know a whole lot about. But this is a way for us to come close to the body and touch it in a way. But it's within a frame that we can always put down or, turn off or walk away from if it gets to be too much. And I think that's why we use literature and film as a mediating factor between us and what's scary. We turn death into monsters, we turn death into investigation shows. These are all things that help us deal with what is essentially a frightening, unknown process.
Behind every single person that comes in here, there is usually a group of friends, family, who have now suffered a significant loss. And so there's not just one victim. The victim is in fact a group of people.
Anything in any county in Maryland, we have to deal with it. So, even things that we hear about on the internet or on the news and things like that, most of us, we don't watch the news because we know we're going to see the news once we get to work.
We have answers to a deceased person of why he or she may have died. But reasoning, we have no reasoning for the violence that people inflict on one another.
And I know there's a lot of family members who think about and they wonder, what is autopsies really like? Do they really be cutting people up? Yes, we cut them, but it is for medical reasons. It's not just because we enjoy doing it. We do it so we can help them to understand what it was that may have taken their loved one from them.
I mean, there's days that are very hard. I think probably the child death scenes are the hardest ones to deal with, or the really brutal murders.
We really don't like talking about our jobs once we leave work, because once you leave work, you want to leave any sorrow that may have happened the night before or the day of. We want to leave all that stuff here, because if you take that stuff out and you start to hold it, it can really break you down and make you into a very sentimental type of person, meaning you'll walk around and start crying about everything. I just ask God to watch over all of the souls that are here, and hopefully we can make sense of what we may walk into today. We can answer some of those unanswered questions. We can make some things that really aren't there in plain sight for people to see and hear and understand. We can make that stuff visible and just paint a one big vivid picture so those who don't know will know.
I've been a detective for over 12 years. Someone takes someone's life, I'm that person's last voice and to bring closure to that family.
A young lady had come from California. She had messed up some of the drug transactions, stolen money, things like that from the gang, and they brutally killed her. They hit her in the head with a cinder block, crushed her, jumped on her head, stabbed her like 37 times. I mean, it was, let me show you some of the pictures at the scene. These are some of the footprints that we saw in the blood. She was laying like this when we got there. She was beat terribly. I mean, these are bruise marks from them kicking her. These are stab wounds.
A lot of times you can't answer the why question, and it's just left out there. But you wonder, I mean, I talk to my friends, my colleagues, and why anybody would do this to anybody. You know, they wonder this, you know, you wonder this, everybody wonders this. And there's not a rhyme or reason why they do it, and there's no answer out there.
I try to name my investigations after the victim. We have a tendency to name them after our accused, because that's who we're constantly dealing with. But they get lost, and the victims are the most important part of it.
She died in a room where no one had bothered to change the calendar in 5 years. The room was registered the previous evening under the names Mr. and Mrs. John Smith. Mr. Smith left the next morning, specifically requesting that the staff not disturb his wife. At 3 p.m., the rooming housemaid tried several times to wake the woman. But Mrs. Smith wouldn't be checking out at all.
Welcome to the Anthropological Research Facility, otherwise known as the Body Farm. Just want to watch your step and walk over this. Every piece of plastic that you see is actually a donation. Currently, we have 180 bodies out here in various states of decomposition or locations.
We needed a place where we could study rates of decomposition in a certain environment under different conditions to help establish something called time since death, a framework, because in a criminal case it could break someone's alibi by having a scientific way of establishing when this person probably had died.
We do predominantly place individuals on the surface, but we also place people in burials. We will place people to mimic cases. So that means we will place people in a trash can. We will place people in a trunk of a car. The only thing that we will not do is we do not inflict any type of harm beyond all that was already committed on that individual, which means that we do not shoot people up. We do not cut them up. Unfortunately, we receive enough donations that those things already occur to them that we don't need to do that and see the damages or the effects that it has on decomposition.
The FBI trained there. Entomologists who study insects trained there. Dog handlers trained there. It's an amazing place and was a result of a visionary, Bill Bass, who really saw the need for it because he made such a huge mistake on one of his cases, missed it by 100 years, and he recognized we need to study this with scientific studies with controlled conditions.
Dr. Bass is considered one of the grandfathers of forensic anthropology. When we first started and first opened, people refer to it as the Bass Anthropological Research Facility after Dr. Bass. But unfortunately, the acronym is BARF, and you do not want a facility that we have named BARF. So it was called ARF, and a lot of our students now call it the ARF. But it's known to most people as the Body Farm. Between our work at the facility and our skeletal collection, we have at any given time over 800 individuals that are being used in research. The angulation of this, because it's actually going downward, and the likelihood of it being self-inflicted is very limited. So it's a better chance this was a homicide. Now, if you compare that to something like this, on this individual, you again see an entrance wound where it has really clean edges and radiating fractures. And then compare it to over here, you actually have a nice exit wound with the radiating fractures and the beveling. But something like this, where you have a side shot, like on the side of the head, is more typical of the self-inflicted or suicide instance.
It's all in the pursuit of justice to make sure the right people are convicted and the right people are cleared. That's the point. And without visionaries who put very solid processes in place that are reliable and valid, we would still have a lot of people just relying on their opinions or on junk science. And that's how innocent people get convicted and guilty people don't get convicted.
There's so much to learn from a decomposing body and all of the things that go along with that body. Just like what Captain Lee was trying to show people and demonstrate, that there's so many little things that are involved in a scene that could aid in the investigation, and if you approached it in a certain way, you could really enhance your investigation, if not change the answers that you got from it.
It was the day before Christmas, and Jessie Compton's back door was wide open. At 6 a.m., Harry the milkman entered and searched the home out of concern for the elderly woman. In the attic, he found where Mrs. Compton hung her clothes to dry. Only this time, she was still in them. Love letters were scattered on the floor. It was 6:43 before Harry phoned the police.
I teach a class called Psychological Sleuthing. And as part of this class, the students reproduce one of francesglessnerlee's doll houses of death, or nutshell studies, in the attic of a building we call Tucker House on campus.
We're going to always photograph the scene before we collect any evidence. We're going to take 4 corners of the room. Ideally, if we're outside, we want to take each side of the building, okay? The black lights, we're going to have saliva on the envelopes, so we're going to check that for any remnants of that. Also,
we will then have an investigative class come in and try to process the scene, and we'll have other students in my class go in and try to profile the behavioral evidence of the scene. And that way they get a hands-on experience of what it's like to really have to think through what is involved in a death scene and where do they look for evidence and how do they go about processing that.
And then it says, as he's coming home, the thought of you turns my stomach even now. When I return, do not call for me, and I hope your presence will never again darken my doorstep, for I will not be found upon yours. And it says farewell instead of love, like all the other ones say.
So what happened exactly? Why the sudden change of heart?
No.
I'm very happy that there's been so much attention paid to forensics, because it does bring in a lot more interest, and so you have a larger pool of students from which to find really the best type of investigators. I find that the 4-year programs and then into graduate school winnow out the students who really just want to dress cool and be like CSI, as opposed to those who are genuinely serious about a career in forensics or in investigation. So I think it's great because we get a lot of interest, but we do find a lot of students kind of fall away. I actually had one student who thought she wanted to be a profiler, and the first time she saw a crime scene photo, she just about fainted and said she'd rather work in a Dairy Queen.
It is becoming harder and harder for students to get into programs. And then the students that get into the programs are students that are here because forensics is cool, not because it's science. And that's something that is really trying for those of us that were truly interested in forensics, especially before the rise of CSI.
They see very sexy, glamorous, glitzy, high-action shows, movies, and television, and they think that's what it is. But in fact, there are no positions like what they depict on CSI. There are none. Well, see, it looked to me like it was an elderly woman reading old love letters and getting depressed and just hanging herself with her clothesline. You don't think that's what happened?
I don't think so, because in another letter it said that he had a small token of his love, which I came to assume that was the little doll over there. And also there was a muddy boot print that was facing the opposite direction of her.
Okay.
The way she was hanging.
The way the ligature marks on her neck were didn't match the way the rope was hanging around her neck, and it's hard to strangle yourself and then hang yourself. So.
Did anybody notice that there were two different handwritings in the letter?
I didn't look that closely.
Okay. Yeah, that was a clue.
I actually wanted to do forensic science before CSI even started, and I'm actually going on to get a master's in forensic toxicology, so I'm not going to be out on the crime scene. I'm going to be in the lab, which isn't that glamorous, but it's definitely what I enjoy doing.
And plus, it's not really glamorous when you have to deal with families. There's a lot of the emotional humanitarian aspect of dealing with the survivors of a crime and the victims.
Hopefully I'm going to go to law school, but I'd also, if not, I'd like to become a detective. So, I mean, this is right up my alley. I really enjoy doing this kind of stuff.
Eben Wallace was prone to histrionics. Whenever things didn't go his way, he'd storm out to the barn, stand on an overturned bucket with a noose around his neck, and threaten to jump. His wife, Arvella, always talked him down. Except on the day she didn't. Was Eben Wallace just an accident waiting to happen? Or perhaps Arvella thought that it would be easier living with the money from Eben's insurance policy than living with Eben.
It's presumed that he couldn't find the pail, which was hidden around the back of the barn, and somebody had moved it back there to water the animals. So he used the packing case instead, which broke under his weight. And he ended up being successful in his suicide or parasuicide. If you want to go with the wife theory, yes, the wife could have hidden the bucket around the back, then picked an argument with the husband knowing what he would do. Or it could be a true accident. Although if you put yourself in harm's way and you're successful, you do have to take responsibility for that to some degree. So there are so many different ways that you look for. Now you're going to try and decide which of those particular scenarios will allow you to get as close to the truth as humanly possible.
There's a door there's a door over here, and there's a little foyer, and on the other side of the foyer there's a main entrance, and there's a slot over there for the mail to come in. And there's 6 pieces of mail on the floor. And as you come into the room, you can see there's 2 chairs that are covered, and there's 2 lamps. One here, both have shades on and also covered with some sort of cloth and tied. 2 windows in the house. They're both locked with shutters that are also closed. There's 2 chairs, one here, and there's another chair around here with a piano and a little stool in front of the piano. And in front of that is the victim, a teenager by the name of Dorothy Denson. She has, as you can see, a stab wound in the left side of the stomach, abdomen area. And also on the right side of the head, there's also some sort of blunt force trauma. Her dress, the upper part, the chest is being exposed, and also the dress is lifted up, exposing her right leg by the thigh area. She has some sort of abrasion scratches on her face, her chest area, and leg. There's also a purse over here with a package of meat, which she went to buy. Behind the chair over here, there's also a hammer and a little blood on the head of the hammer. So the statement says that on August 19th, the victim, Dorothy, left her house. The individual who owns the marketplace says, Dorothy was here, I sold her a pound of meat at approximately 12 o'clock in the afternoon. The police was called at approximately 5:40 on that day by the mother. And once the police got the call, they started the investigation. And on August 21st, they searched all abandoned property in that vicinity and nothing. And on August 23rd, she was discovered over here. Also, just to mention, by the meat, there are some flies. And on the victim, there's no flies, no decomp. Doesn't look like there's any lividity being set. There's no marks on the wrist to show that maybe she was being held captive anywhere. There's a large amount of blood underneath her head. And on the knife where she was stabbed, no blood.
Your 3-room dwelling consists of a kitchen and 2 bedrooms. In the adult bedroom, there is a woman on the bed and a man lying on a floor on blankets. Blood all around them, blood splatter on the wall. Furniture turned over.
Blood here, footprints leading to there. Well, how does the gun wind up in the kitchen and he winds up here? Assuming that the male is the shooter, it could be the female, but could be.
Now that's around right there under the chair, okay? So if the person's standing here, he fires, hits her.
Right.
But there's definitely, whatever round was used over there, is the same shell casing that's here, up under the chair.
You go in the child's room, there's a baby in a crib. Again, blood splatter against the wall, some stuff turned over.
It would appear that there's an open window on the porch into the baby's bedroom.
And a chair's knocked over there as well. Knocked over. All right, so let's look at signs of struggle. Definitely there, definitely here.
You go into the kitchen, and then there's a rifle laying on the floor, and then there's these puddling of blood in different locations, and there's smears as it looks somebody might have been dragged through, the house.
All the blood is right up there where the head would have been in the bed. Then there's blood that runs down there to the floor. The pillow is in the corner.
Yeah, there's no splatter.
And there's no splatter on that pillow.
There's minor stuff.
Very minor.
It looks like the wound pattern on the female is all facial, right? Yeah. I don't see anything lower than that, do you? What's interesting is there's a flashlight on this night table, too. Mm-hmm. And there's no lights on in the house. What's he got on his feet? Does he have blood on his feet from these footprints? No, it doesn't appear to be. Well, yeah, he does. There's right some on his
on the tip of his toes and his
left heel here. There's blood.
Come over here on this side of the front door. I can't tell if that's a pry mark right there, but if they were in here, they would have already been inside. See the door?
Oh yeah.
Here's what we got, right? We have 2 open windows, one of which looks like a sign of a struggle. There's definitely a round was fired in this room. There's a shell casing that's been discharged. Then we have another sign of blood and drag marks from this area. Somebody's definitely wounded there, and most likely the shooter of that child. Why would a burglar want to kill a child? I agree with you wholeheartedly. But again, we don't know the circumstances behind this marriage. Maybe this isn't even his child. Who knows? But, none of the drawers are open. Nothing's really ransacked to indicate somebody tried to steal anything. The kitchen cabinets are closed. It's neat and orderly, given what happened here.
Let me see the sink. I want to make sure nobody...
There's no blood in it.
There's no blood in the sink? The towel looks like it was left as it was probably the night before or after they did dishes.
Well, what we'll do is we'll get the EVU up here, the emergency unit, and we'll take the J-trap out of the sink and save whatever water's in there, and that could possibly hold some blood in it, DNA.
Good call.
Excellent idea.
Just to make sure nobody tried to come out.
I think that they're wonderful. You have to be open to possibility. It could be a murder, it could be a suicide, it could be an accidental death. And as investigators, you constantly have to keep your mindset open to all the possibilities. And when you look at those, there's, even with the brief scenario you get, there's so many issues you have to be alive to, and they give you a reason to pause and examine everything carefully. And that's the key thing in doing an investigation is, while it's a murder, you have to take your time. If you rush through it, you're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna make mistakes anyway, but you have to sit back, you have to take your time, you have to be methodical. And these kind of scenarios, the nutshells, give you a chance to stare at it and be methodical.
To me, it's just the detail-oriented nature that just makes it really beautiful pieces of art, because that is what it is. It's a piece of art that it goes above and beyond anything that you would think of.
It is so unexpected that we can't help but just keep looking at it because it just doesn't make any sense to us.
It is death, and it's something we don't really want to be involved in our life. But we like to peek at it. It's like an accident as you go by and everybody slows down on the road. We're all little voyeurs at heart, you know?
It's rare, really, today to see a person devote so much to a cause that you could tell the passion she had for really speaking for the dead. And I think it's commendable, absolutely commendable.
We don't like to dwell on the notion of our own end, and trying to understand how people come to an end through fiction, maybe it gets our heads wrapped around it a little bit in a way that we can understand it, and maybe it's an object lesson in how not to live your life. I'm not sure, but it absolutely has, taps into, I think, very deep currents of the human psyche, because it clearly has an enduring appeal.
We may never shake the need to know why Dorothy went into the vacant house on her way home, or what kind of madness found its way into the Judsons' home on Halloween night. Stories of perfect crimes and getting away with murder are not the bedtime stories we like to hear. But perhaps the nutshell studies of unexplained death actually explain more than we want to know. The dead are talking. We just don't like what they have to say.
Well, you sing like a madman at the top of your lungs as you climb up a ladder and you kick out all the rungs to set foot on a roof of a house made of dreams where everything's different than the way that it seems. You put your hand in the fire and you just let it burn you on to undo the pain. It's a way that you learn. Then you jump on out a window, determined to fly, unafraid of the truth.
If anybody knows the answers to the nutshell studies, it's Jerry. And he keeps them locked in the safe in his office, and he won't tell anybody.
I'm often pressured, asked, cajoled to give me this one or give me that one, and sad as it may be, it's just a no.
I can tell you what people are most interested in when they come up to me and talk about the show is they usually say something like, oh, I love the show, everything else, can I be a dead body on it? That's what everybody wants to. I am personally in no rush to get on the autopsy table, but people seem to want to do it.
Now when you take a notion to open up your mind, you see enough to leave another man blind. No friend to indifference, you need something to feel, like a foot on the throttle or a hand upon the wheel. You put your hand in the fire and you just let it burn you on numb to the pain. It's a way that you learn, and then you jump on out a window, determined to fly, unafraid of the truth, you're unafraid of the lie, unafraid of the truth, you're unafraid of the lie. Standing all alone in a crowd, and you whisper a prayer that's both vulgar and loud. You don't ask for forgiveness for what you've done wrong, but when the Lord returns, he'll see you've moved along. To put your hand in the fire and you just let it burn you on down to the pain. It's a way that you learn, and then you jump on out a window, determined to fly, unafraid of the truth, you're unafraid of the lie. Unafraid of the truth, you're unafraid of the lie. Unafraid, you're unafraid, you're unafraid, you're unafraid. And make my tombstone out of